The gang has finally reached Vermilion City, and they look rough. They're exhausted after getting a bit lost. Giselle has moved past anger to an exhausted annoyance. 3 days, she stated. It took 3 whole extra days to get here, just because Ash doesn't have a handle on his team. This entire mess started with Psyduck getting sucked down a strong river, which led to Tangela attempting to chase him and then getting lost himself, which led to Beedrill being used in the air to find him, but he got into a fight, and Pikachu didn't feel like running after anyone and fell asleep. Ash's face flushed, and he said his handle on his team was fine. He didn't want to restrict their autonomy, that was all. Restrict their autonomy? Looks like someone was finally learning his big boy words, Giselle cooed, rubbing Ash's head condescendingly. She really was a good influence on him. Brock broke them up before Ash attempted to bite Giselle's hand off. It's been a rough couple of days, but they were here. Let's just head to the Pokemon Center. The group heads to the Pokemon Center where they rest up. Ash was antsy though. Vermilion had his next gym battle and he was ready for the challenge. Surprisingly, Brock was a little hesitant at Ash fighting. Well, why not, Ash prompts. A gym was a gym and he was on a hot streak. Brock sighs and reveals that he knows the gym leader here, surprising Ash, but not Giselle. Giselle gives Ash a look. Of course Brock knows the other gym leaders. The gym leaders work directly with the league, especially on matters concerning their towns and the region. Why wouldn't they know each other? Though he didn't seem familiar with the Sensational Sisters for whatever reason. Brock has met their parents, the previous gym leaders. The sisters only took over around a year ago. Regardless, Lieutenant Serge was a powerful force in his own right and wasn't known for holding back. Ash still didn't see the issue. So he was tough? That was great! Ash would be the trainer to knock him down a peg. Giselle muttered that she didn't think Serge was the one who needed to be humbled here. Nurse Joy overhears and correlates Brock's story. She reveals our back room was full of Pokemon laid up in beds with various injuries. Giselle and Ash were shocked while Brock had a grim look of understanding. All these trainers fought Serge only to be crushed. Nurse Joy says Serge is a good man who does his duties well, but restraint was not something he had much practice in. Even the Pokemon he used for lower level trainers were monstrous. With all this new info, Giselle is hesitant at the idea of Ash fighting. Ash looks at his friends in disbelief. Run from a gym? Because the guy was tough? So what if he beat up some scrubs? Ash was a great trainer and his team was the best. They'll see that together, they can take on any opponent. Ash's grandstanding was ruined a bit by the scrubs glaring at him from their injured Pokemon's sides. Making their way to the gym, Ash and Giselle's jaws drop as they are met by a mountain of a man. He grins savagely and asks which one of them was looking for a beatdown. Ash glares and declares he's here to challenge him. Serge is about to respond when he notices Brock. Well, if it isn't Brocky. He heard that his old man finally dragged himself home. What's he doing with a couple of rugrats? Babysitting? Giselle covered Ash's mouth before he could go off. Babysitting? Who does this guy think he is? Brock says he's traveling with them to learn about being a proper breeder. Serge looks to an infuriated Ash before noticing Pikachu. He lets out a laugh. He asks how many badges Ash has, who proudly declares that he had 2. But that only got Serge to laugh harder. 2 badges and an unevolved Pikachu. And he thinks he has what it takes to beat him? Come back when you evolve your Pokemon, then you might stand a chance. Oh yeah? What makes him think that Ash's Pikachu wasn't strong enough? Serge's grin turns savage. He brings out a Raichu that dwarfs Pikachu in size. You could say he's an expert on them. Pikachu glares at the smirking Raichu, mirroring Ash's look to Serge. Ash knows he can beat Serge. His Pikachu is the best. Serge looks at Brock. You're really gonna let the kid do this? Brock can only look away. Alright then. Serge was gonna be merciful because he's one of Brocky's runs, but if Ash wants to play with the big boys, he's gonna learn what it means. They move to a battlefield where Raichu and Pikachu take their place. The tension was palpable. I'd say the battle begins, but this wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. Pikachu tried to use Thundershock, but it didn't even tickle Raichu. Raichu didn't even bother using an electric attack. It brutalized Pikachu with a Mega Punch and Mega Kick. Pikachu tried to use speed to evade, but Raichu was faster. It finally ends things by destroying the ground with Thunderbolt, blasting Pikachu and knocking it out. Serge shrugs off the victory. He warned him. Ash was shell-shocked before quickly grabbing Pikachu and running out of there. Brock and Giselle follow. They go to the center where Pikachu spends the night in the hospital. They lay unconscious while they sat there silently. Giselle wants to say something, but isn't sure what. This doesn't feel like a moment to lecture Ash on his faults. Ash doesn't need them to say it. He tells them he knows. They were right. Pikachu and him were completely outmatched. Didn't stand a chance. He's never fought someone that strong before. He lost to Brock and Green, but even then it didn't feel like this. It's because it is different, Brock answers. Both times he's lost before, even in defeat, you were able to look back and realize how you could have won. You could have used a different Pokemon or a different move. That's different than fighting someone who simply is that much stronger. Pikachu doesn't have the raw power of Raichu. None of Ash's Pokemon do. He doubts Ash could even go find a wild Pokemon strong enough to take it down. Giselle thinks Brock's being too harsh, but Ash says it's fine. He's right. Ash is silent for a moment before asking the two if he could be alone with Pikachu for a bit. The duo leave him to his vigil. Away from them, Giselle is concerned. She's never seen Ash so down before. She smacks Brock in the chest. Why did he lay into him like that? Brock says it's what he needed to hear. When you get knocked down like that, you have to make a decision. Either lay down and roll over, or get up, wipe the dust off, and keep moving forward. Giselle says he sounds like he's speaking from experience. Brock is. He's been in Ash's position before. He was there when his parents left him to take care of his siblings, and he was there when he had to fight to prove himself as the Pewter City gym leader. Giselle didn't know his parents did that. Serge did, though. He and Brock looked like they knew each other, and not just because they met at a meeting or something. Brock admits that Serge was something of a mentor. When his dad left, it put the gym in a perilous spot. Brock was young, and he hadn't competed in a league to even show he had the strength or skill to take over. Normally, even if the gym was handed down through the family, the league would send an examiner to evaluate the next gym leader. However, since Brock was missing the usual accomplishments, they sent a fellow gym leader to test him. Serge came down and they fought. Brock chuckles sadly. It wasn't even close. If you thought Ash's loss in there was bad, try seeing your Onyx get thrown around the room. So if you lost, how come you still became the gym leader? Giselle questioned. Brock explained that after beating him, rather than report he failed, Serge stuck around and trained him up. He showed him how to be a gym leader on the battlefield and for the city. After that, he told the league he was good to go. Giselle doesn't know what to make of all that. That was surprisingly kind of the man they just saw thrash Ash. Brock sighed. Serge taught Ash a lesson. It wasn't nice, but it was one he could learn and bounce back from. It's just up to Ash whether he does so. Back in the infirmary, Pikachu finally wakes up to Ash's delight. The joy was cut short as Pikachu stared at the wall, a look of anger and sadness on his face. Ash sighed. Yeah, he was feeling it too. Raichu was a monster. They couldn't outmuscle him. They couldn't outspeed him. Raichu was just stronger. It burned him up inside to admit it. Nurse Joy makes her presence known. She apologizes. She heard their conversation and wanted to offer something. She brings out a small box that contains a Thunderstone. With it, Pikachu could evolve into a Raichu. Ash questions why she'd give this to them. Her job is to help Pokemon. Sometimes that requires more than just patching them up, she explains. She doesn't want to force his hand. This was just something for them to consider. Once they make the choice, they can't undo it. Ash and Pikachu stare at the stone. With it, Pikachu could evolve into a Raichu. It could make him a match for Serge. Ash remembers Beedrill. Since evolving, he was tough enough to take on everyone they'd come across. He can't imagine it defeating the foes it faced if it was still a Weedle. This could be the answer. He looks to Pikachu. What does he want to do? This affects him more than it does Ash. Is he ready for this next step? When Brock and Giselle get to the room, they find it empty. Giselle blinks. Where did those two go? Brock finds a note on the bed. Be back tomorrow, meet at gym, tell Serge we're gonna kick his butt. Ash. Is he stupid? Giselle can't believe Ash. Brock smiles though. Way to dust yourself off, Ash. The next day, Giselle and Brock are waiting for Ash at the gym. Serge is curious. He usually doesn't get repeat visitors, especially not the next day. Brock tells him that Ash is a unique trainer. You're not gonna meet many like him. Giselle wishes she could take that as a compliment, but it was Ash. Unique was the politest thing they could call him. Still, part of her was worried. Nurse Joy had informed them of her offer for Ash. She wanted to know what he decided. Brock told her he already knew the answer. He wouldn't tell her, though, but he knew, she guessed. Ash appears without Pikachu in sight. He's covered in dirt and he has bags underneath his eyes. Still, he looked full of energy. With a grin on his face, he declares he's here for a rematch. Giselle is incredulous. Has he been out all night? No, just most of it. They got some sleep. Doesn't matter, though. He was ready. Serge grins. Ash still has some fight left in him. Good. That means this won't be just another blowout. Both gym leader and trainer ignore Giselle's sputtering as they head inside. Giselle asked if they are insane? How is Ash going to win? Where was Pikachu? Brock pulls the frantic girl inside with a shake of his head and a smile. Gym leader and trainer take their places across from one another. Serge asks Ash if he was ready to lose. Ash smirks. He was going to ask him the same thing. Both trainers throw out their Pokeballs. Raichu appears on Serge's side and Pikachu on Ash's. Giselle lets out a breath she was holding in, so he didn't go through with it. Brock tells her that Ash wouldn't make Pikachu evolve, and Pikachu had too much pride to let a defeat like that force him into the decision. Serge tells him he better bring his A game. He wants a real fight this time. The battle begins! Pikachu remains still waiting for Raichu to attack. Serge decides to bring the pain to Ash. Raichu dashes in, going for a Mega Punch, only for Pikachu to slip out of the way. He gets as far back as possible, readying for another blow. Serge is perturbed, but keeps at it. Every time Raichu goes for a physical technique, Pikachu dodges and puts distance between them. He fires off a few weak Thundershocks at Raichu that don't do damage, but do piss off the mouse. Raichu is getting sloppy. It was faster than Pikachu, but not when it was trying to land a Mega Punch or a Mega Kick. It let Pikachu slip the moves with an ease he didn't get the first time around. Finally, Serge had enough. He calls for Raichu to put everything he has into this. Hit him with the Thunderbolt. Raichu gathers power before launching a massive bolt of electricity. Ash grins. Finally! He yells at Pikachu to take the hit, shocking everyone around them. Pikachu is struck by the bolt only to brace himself. Rather than get knocked out, Pikachu starts to absorb the electricity. Eventually, the blast peters out, and Raichu slumps in exhaustion. He really did put his all into it. Meanwhile, Pikachu is sparking with power. Ash tells Pikachu to hit him with his own Thunderbolt. For the first time, Pikachu lets loose a Thunderbolt that rips through the earth before striking Raichu. An explosion engulfs the battlefield. The smoke clears, revealing a knocked out Raichu and an exhausted Pikachu. Ash is declared the winner, letting Pikachu finally let the darkness take him. Serge is dumbfounded before he starts to laugh maniacally. Kid, you're a lunatic! He hands Ash the badge, saying he earned it. He beat him at his own game. He didn't expect such a puny runt of a Pikachu to absorb the blow. Ash says Pikachu's had a lot of practice absorbing electricity. He realized that if he could get Serge to hit him directly with the blast, they could send it right back at him. It was an insane plan with a lot of variables that could have made it a disaster, but it didn't fail. So who cared? Giselle smacks Ash and asks, "What the hell was that?" Ash grins, slumping in exhaustion. A crazy idea that worked out. He and Pikachu spent the night coming up with it. It was the first part of his master plan. They spent the rest of the night practicing dodging blows from the rest of the team to improve Pikachu's reaction time. Then he had to recall Pikachu. He didn't like his Pokeball, but it would keep him from getting any more tired. Plus, it made for a cool entrance. They were just lucky Raichu couldn't pull off the same trick Pikachu did. Brock congratulates him on the win. He is sorry he didn't believe in Ash before. Ash waves him off. They were right in the first place. It was only after getting his butt whooped that he was able to see how they could win. Could they go now? He could sleep for days. That was perfect for Giselle. The SS and departed tomorrow, meaning they had a luxurious cruise to break on. For once, Ash was happy to have a break. The SS Anne was the epitome of wealth and class. Entering the ship, Brock and Ash were immediately out of their element. Giselle, though, she was thriving. She took a deep breath as if she'd been holding hers for a long time. Finally, she was back in proper society. Ash eyed the well-dressed patrons. He didn't know what society this was, but it wasn't anything he knew. Despite the elite that seemed to be there, it was full of trainers. Pokemon were on full display and Ash marveled at them all. The gang decided to split up. Giselle wanted to enjoy the delicacies of fine society, while Brock wanted to check out what was being sold here. Ash, meanwhile, rushed to the lower deck where battles were being held. With Pikachu by his side, he was eager for a fight. That would come sooner as he thought as he shoved his way to the front of the crowd. Ash's jaw dropped before clenching in anger. The judge announces that the winner is Gary Oak of Pallet Town, who will be the next challenger of our current winner. In the ring stood Gary, having just defeated a rather rich-looking fellow's Raticate. A war turtle was by his side, looking happy at its victory. Ash didn't hesitate to declare his challenge. Gary's eyes focused in and a smirk crossed his features. Well, if it wasn't Ashy Boy, how did he get on a boat like this? Ash won his tickets for an act of heroism. How did Gary get here? Gary looks at him as if he was an idiot. His grandfather, duh. They sent him tickets and he couldn't come, so he gave them to me. Ash reddened slightly. Whatever! He was here for a battle. Gary was fine with that. He needed a cooldown after beating so many people in a row. The two face off. Ash sends out Tangela while Gary brings out Abra. Tangela was speedy, running circles around Abra, who stayed fast asleep. Ash thought this was to be an easy victory and ordered a Vine Whip. However, before it could connect, Abra vanished. It reappeared behind Tangela and blasted it with a Tri-Attack. Ash had Tangela try again, only to have the same results. What was going on? Gary rolled his eyes. Abra was a psychic type. They were known for their ability to teleport. This was basic stuff, Ashy Boy. It was a fruitless battle as Abra simply teleported out of the way of the attacks and retaliated with Tri-Attacks. It finished things up by surrounding Tangela with Double Team. Tangela tried to find the real one, but they vanished upon being struck. Abra revealed itself and took Tangela down with a Psychic. Ash recalls Tangela with a grimace. Gary merely laughs. He expected a harder battle. Maybe if he tries harder, one day he'll reach Gary's level. Ash leaves and meets Giselle and Brock for dinner. Giselle gushed over the food and jewelry she acquired. Brock was fascinated by the merchandise, having picked up some new cooking equipment and recipes that would make a better Pokemon food. Ash grunted into his food. Giselle cocked an eyebrow. What was his problem? Gary Oak, that's who! Gary? Brock remembered that was who scrawled graffiti on the sign to Cerulean. Ash explained that Gary was his childhood rival. He's on here too and he beat Ash in a battle. He had this crazy Pokemon that could teleport. Tangela couldn't even keep up. Wait, Giselle's brow scrunched in thought. Gary Oak? As in Professor Oak? Yeah, that's his grandfather. He's a great guy. Too bad Gary didn't inherit any of his niceness. Giselle slammed the table. You know Professor Oak's grandson? She was aghast in disbelief. Ash wasn't sure what the deal was. He's known Gary and the professor his entire life. Hell, Oak was almost like a grandfather to Ash. Giselle was just stunned Ash knew someone so important. Professor Oak practically revolutionized the entire field of Pokemon research. The fact Ash casually knew him was a lot to take in. Ash didn't care about that. They had to figure out how to beat Gary. There had to be a trick. Brock was about to suggest training, but it was cut off by a loud crash. The doors were sealed and various staffers ripped their uniforms off to reveal Team Rocket uniforms underneath. Team Rocket demanded everyone surrender their Pokemon. They were taking over the ship! Gasps of fear and panic broke out as the notorious criminal group commanded everyone. Ash's sour face shifted to a grin. He slammed his hands into the table and stood up. Giselle looked panicked, asking what he was doing. Ash was in a bad mood, and this was just the thing to take all his aggression out on. People were paralyzed in fear, unsure of what to do. Ash is the first to get up, though. He yells that he won't give up his Pokemon without a fight. That seemed to rally everyone else into a fighting frenzy, and a battle broke out between Team Rocket and the trainers. The battle went quickly into the trainers' favor. It seemed without the element of fear on their side, Team Rocket was quick to get overwhelmed. However, the battle was thrown into even more chaos as something hit the boat. The entire thing lurched, sending everyone scrambling. The captain's voice came over the radio announcing they've been hit by a sudden storm. Everyone needs to evacuate to the lifeboats immediately! Team Rocket members, passengers, it didn't matter. There was a rush to the lifeboats. Giselle grabbed Ash and Brock as Ash returned his team. People were crowding the doors, preventing them from busting their way through. Before they could even try and breach the wall of people, a familiar trio made themselves known. Oh great, these guys again! The Team Rocket trio of Jesse, James, and Meowth declared they were here to get Pikachu. Get Pikachu? The entire ship is going to sink! They knew that. Desperate times call for great opportunities. Simply hand over Pikachu and they'll get them off the ship. Ash thinks they were out of their minds for thinking he'd give away Pikachu. Before a battle could commence, the boat lurched once more and people screamed. Ash felt his footing slip as they all started to fall towards the side of the ship. There's no way they could get out of this in time! Ash felt someone grab the back of his collar. Abra, get us out of here! Suddenly they weren't on the ship. They're on an orange life raft outside of it. Ash looked to see him, Giselle, Brock, and Pikachu on a raft. Sitting them was Gary and his Abra. Both trainer and Pokemon were sweating. Giselle was pale and Brock was holding his chest in relief. It wasn't over yet. Waves shoved the life raft away from the sinking SS Ant, and they were forced to hang on for dear life. Ash didn't know how long it took, but the rain eventually started to let up and the waves got calmer. Brock asked if everyone was okay. Giselle didn't respond, trying to regain our breath. Ash said he and Pikachu were okay. He looked at Gary and asked if he was good. Gary looked just as thrown around as the rest of them, but he said he was fine. He returned to Abra and told it to rest before slumping against the raft. It was just the four of them in the open sea on a life raft. Silence permeated the boat before Ash finally broke it. He thanked Gary for saving their neck back there. If he didn't, they'd probably be at the bottom of the ocean. Gary rolled his eyes. It was whatever. He wasn't just going to let him drown on a ship. If Ash drowned, who else was he going to have to kick around? Plus, if he hadn't, then Green was going to be mad and sad, and that was just a lot to deal with. Ash agreed. Regardless, he did genuinely thank Gary for helping them. The group took a few minutes to regain their composure. Not every day you almost die in a shipwreck. Gary is curious. He didn't recognize the girl, but what's Brock doing with Ash? Shouldn't he have a gym to run? Ash introduces Brock and Giselle. He explains their current traveling setup. Brock's working on his breeder skills, while Giselle's learning more about connecting with her Pokemon. Brock and Giselle thank Gary for his help. He and Ash were childhood friends? Both boys look strained at the idea of being called friends. Rivals, Ash clarifies. That's generous, Gary mutters. Ash glares, but he was too mentally drained to argue. Giselle found their interactions strange. She tried to imagine the two boys in green all hanging out, but it was hard to picture. Gary seemed to have an attitude, while Green was on the simpler side. Ash was just Ash. All three together didn't seem like a recipe for friendship. Brock nudged her and said some would say the same thing about her and Ash being friends. Friendship was weird. Small talk aside, they did have a problem. How were they going to reach land? Gary pulled out a map. They'd only been on the SS Anne for a day, and the course was set for Cinnabar Island. They definitely passed underneath the bike path, which meant they were in the open sea. Now, with the way the currents work, it would either direct them towards Cinnabar, one of the many islands that dotted their way there, or the Seafoam Islands. Either way, they should be good. All they had to really worry about was survival. Brock was impressed by Gary's knowledge. Gary said he did his research before the cruise. You never know what could happen, so he prepared for every contingency. Ash rolled his eyes. Gary the overthinker. You wouldn't believe how long it took him to even just pick out an ice cream flavor. First he had to see what they had, then list the pros and cons of each. Then he had to see if there were any combinations that would lead to the best taste and blah 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 blah. Gary's face flushed. Shut up! His excellent planning currently saved their butts if he remembered. Ash was about to rebuttal, but the group felt the boat shift. That wasn't a wave. Something was in the water. Pikachu's cheeks sparked. The water exploded. From it, a massive Gyarados emerged. It roared at the group. With a slap of its tail, it sent the boat flying. The group managed to hold on and not get knocked into the sea. Ash asked why it was attacking them. These things were monsters, Gary yelled. They don't need a reason. We're just in its territory. Gyarados surged at them, and Ash yelled at Pikachu to hit it with a thunderbolt. The bolt struck true and halted the sea serpent's movements. It glared and ducked underneath the water. Is it gone? Giselle stuttered. Gary glared at the water. No, that just made it angrier. Gyarados emerged a distance away, and its eyes glowed with power. The water beneath the raft began to swirl and rise. It was a Dragon Rage attack! Brace yourself! The group screamed as they were sucked into a vortex of water and flung through the air. They tried to hold on to each other, but their fingers slipped. Ash felt his vision darken and the world went black. Ash awakens with a groan. God, his head was killing him. What happened? He blearily sits up, only to suddenly realize he was on a beach. Memories flashed before him and he jumped up in alarm. Boat, Giselle, Brock, Gary, Gyarados, Pikachu! Where was everyone? What happened? Ash can't see anyone around him. His belt feels lighter as well. He rapidly pats himself down only to find his team was missing. Oh god, this was a nightmare! Ash took some deep breaths to calm himself. Okay, panicking isn't gonna help. He needs to find everyone. Looking around the beach, something glints in the sand, catching his eye. Rushing over, he finds a Pokeball. A little ways away was another, and another! Relief flooded through him. Thank God his team hadn't been blown too far away. He just needed Pikachu and all would be right. With a click, he released the Pokemon inside only to blink in confusion. Tangela was here, only instead of Psyduck and Beedrill, Wartortle and Abra were there instead. These weren't his Pokemon, these were Gary's. He slumped. He'd feel a lot better if he had his own Pokemon with him. Well, no point in complaining now. He tells the group the situation. They need to go find the others. Now let's go! Ash and Tangela begin to march off, only for Ash to realize the others aren't following. Guess what they were doing? Let's go! The duo looked at each other before scoffing at Ash's command. A tick mark appeared on Ash's head. Really? They weren't going to listen? They listened to Gary of all people! Still, they refused. With a frustrated sigh, Ash returned them. Looks like it was just him and Tangela. Together, they marched into the forest. He just hoped the others were having a better time than him. Gary was not having a good time. He ran at a frantic pace, a Psyduck tucked underneath his arm, while behind them a roaring Rhyhorn stampeded after them. It was just his luck that he only had one of Ash's Pokemon to rely on. Who captured a Pokemon that couldn't even use a proper move? When Gary found Ash, he was going to kill him! Back with Ash, he and Tangela had trampled through the woods. Ash called out to the others, but got no response. This was going to be tougher than he thought. Walking with Tangela, Ash observed the little guy. Tangela was an oddball among oddballs on the team. Sure, Psyduck couldn't swim and Beedrill was battle crazy, but Tangela was still a yarn ball of mysteries. Ash hadn't forgotten how they'd met. He wasn't sure how long Tangela had been following him, and he's still not sure why. It wasn't like he hadn't just thought of asking. But I mean, there was a little bit of a language barrier. And Tangela was hard to read beyond what was on the surface, if there was anything going on underneath at all. Ash wasn't really sure. Ash found himself reminiscing about this due to a feeling of deja vu. Something was odd about this forest. He was getting the same feeling that he got when he first met Tangela. Someone was watching him. That feeling was made true as Ash ducked underneath a blast of fire. What the heck? The duo looked to see a growling fox glaring at them. A quick Pokedex check showed it to be a Ninetales. Well, Ash wasn't going to take a sneak attack lying down. Tangela shot forward with a Vine Whip, but it phased through Ninetales, who faded out of view. Ash blanched. Could it teleport? Did everything he fight now teleport? Tangela yanked Ash out of the way of another blast. Ninetales reappeared once more. Rather than attack again, Ash yelled at Tangela to run and the duo took off. Shots of fire followed their escape. Meanwhile, Brock was having an okay time. The forest was lush, the weather was nice, and he managed to find a number of Pokeballs. Geodude was also with him, making him feel a bit more comfortable. Hopefully the rest of the Pokemon were found by the others. For now, he wanted to get a read of the land. Exploring the forest, he pushed his way deeper. He kept his head on a swivel, guarded in case any wild Pokemon got territorial. However, other than the odd Oddish, Mankey, or Venonat, he didn't find anything too odd. Brock reached a rather spacious clearing. It'd be a good place to rest while he thought of ways to find the others. Walking aimlessly would only get him so far. But then he noticed something odd with the long grass. Something just managed to peek out between the blades. It had something nestled inside of it. He looked further in, only for his eyebrows to go up in surprise. Now this was interesting. Meanwhile, Ash was hiding behind a tree with Tangela. He could hear the snarling fox stalking around searching for him. They needed a plan. He looked at Tangela. For once, Tangela wasn't blindingly happy. He was panicked. It made sense. Fire was one of the few things that could do massive damage to him. Somehow, that Ninetales couldn't be hit. Ash swore it might have been teleportation, but he doubted it could do that. It had to be something else. That's when it clicked. Double Team! Ninetales was using Double Team to hide itself, which meant that it had to be nearby. It was hiding in the trees. Ash looked at Tangela. He knows the situation is scary, but he trusts him. Does Tangela think he can cut his way through the trees? Tangela gained a determined glint and nodded. Ash nodded back. Go time. He and Tangela leapt out of their hiding spot. Ninetales noticed and let loose another blast of fire. Ash watched close and saw it not come from the Ninetales' mouth, but through it. The real Ninetales was behind it. He ordered Tangela to cut down the trees. Tangela's tentacles glowed white and sharpened before he spun. A whirlwind of blades slashed forward, cutting through the fire, the clone, and the trees. The trees behind the clone were felled, revealing the real Ninetales. It leapt forward to attack. Ash knew Tangela didn't have the firepower to take it down. That's why they weren't going to try and fight like usual. Time for a new trick. He yelled for Tangela to use Stun Spore. A cloud of orange spores shot forward at the snarling Ninetales, who froze midair, crashing to the ground. Sparks shot off it as it struggled to move. Ash and Tangela felt relief flood them as they celebrated their victory. That turned to fear when Ninetales struggled through the paralysis. Flames burst from its mouth and then engulfed it, turning it into a flaming nine-tailed fox. It shot forward at them with vicious intent. Screaming like little girls, Ash and Tangela were saved as Ninetales was slammed into from underneath. From the earth, Onix emerged, sending Ninetales flying into the air. Ninetales was flailing around in the air, and Ash wasn't going to wait for it to get its third wind at this point. He primed a Pokeball and threw it, sucking the beast inside. Atop Onix, an arrogant laughter filled the air. Once again, their lives were saved due to the great Giselle. They may bask her with their eternal thanks and loyalty now. Giselle stood atop Onix, and with her was Pikachu. Ash rejoiced as his starter joined him at his side. Thank God he was alright. Giselle pouted at the lack of praise. She went through all this trouble to find Ash, and he didn't even have a kind word to say. Whatever. She asked if he was okay, which he confirmed. Did she know where the others were? Giselle hadn't found them yet, but Onix could definitely draw them out. They were planning to use Onix like a signal until they heard Ash fighting in the distance. He sure could scream. Ash blushed. Those weren't screams. Those were war cries. Well, he should work on it. Giselle thought it damaged her eardrums more than it intimidated enemies. Onix stood up as tall as he could and gave out a loud cry. It was tall enough to emerge from the canopy. The two kids managed to hear Brock calling out in the distance. It wasn't long before not only him, but Gary managed to find them. Compared to the rest of them, Gary looked like he'd seen hell. He was sweating and covered in bruises. At his side was Psyduck, whose head had several bumps. Ash gawked. What happened to him? Gary could kill Ash. He just spent the last few hours running from a pissed-off Rhyhorn with only this useless duck to defend himself. Ash winced. Ooh, yeah, Psyduck still hadn't got the hang of the battling thing down yet. Still, it looked like they managed to utilize his headaches properly to get out of it. Gary told him to shove it. He was just lucky Gary was smart enough to teach something to this brainless duck to get out of it. Now where was his team? Pokemon were probably redistributed to their owners. Giselle noticed something in Brock's arms. What was that? Oh, Brock found an egg. He waited around for a while, but he realized it was the most likely abandoned, so he thought he would take him with him. Ash thought it looked delicious. It'd make for a great meal. Giselle smacked Ash. It wasn't for eating, moron. It was going to hatch into a Pokemon. Ash didn't really understand how that worked. Giselle was about to go into a rant, but Brock staved the lecture. They'll have time for that later. More important is that he managed to find a path. Looks like there was people on this island, meaning if they followed the road, they'd reach a town or city. That was a relief to the group. They weren't on some deserted island. The group began to make their way back to civilization, but Tangela tugged at Ash. Ash was confused until Tangela gestured to the lone Pokeball. It was still on the ground. Right, that. Ash picked it up and stared down at the Pokeball. He guessed he had a new teammate. For once, though, his gut sank at the thought. He had a bad feeling about this. And that's the video. I don't have my Poliwhirl models ready, so enjoy this recreation with the plush I keep on my desk. Anyways, wow, what a shocker. We finally have a different team member than the original video. As usual, the Q&A will be tomorrow at noon for those wondering why I do the things I do. Leave your praise in the comments, leave the criticism to yourself, and I'll be working on the next episode quick here. I'll see you all next time.